Hello, this is the Gaming Gladiator back at it again with another deck profile on Ultimate Garga, this time featuring Jibu EX, of course. Now, just without further ado, I'm going to showcase my deck profile on Ultimate Garga that focuses on the FTK. I'm going to show the FTK combo at the end of the video, of course. First off, for the size 2s, of course, I'm going to use 3 Ultimate Gargas. I think 3 is just the perfect number for Garga. You don't want to run too many Ultimate Gargas because you already have so many searchers. You can actually run 12 searchers if you want in a deck, and I think that's pretty much enough. Running like 16 Gargas is already fine. Okay, that's it for the Ultimate Garga. Of course, for the G boosts, I run 2 Gargantua Night Dragon, 1 Gargantua Blast Centaur, and 2 Gargantua Slash Wyverns. Basically 2 G-Boost Base, 1 G-Boost Craft, and 1 G-Boost Will. The G-Boost Base and G-Boost Will is actually pretty important for the FTK combo, and you want to maximize the chances that they're gonna be in the drop zone. So you're gonna run more of them besides the Craft, of course, because Craft is actually only good for the second turn, basically, because it gives, well, actually triple attack, but what really does the job is these two. These two really win it for you. Next, for the size 1s, first off, for the searchers, I run 4 Deogordras, 1 Gardog, and 1 Volhite. Why do I run all of them? Because I actually want I actually want the chance to actually get all G boosts. That's why I run at least 1 of each. And why 4 Deogordras? He's basically the best searcher out there because he can actually steal your opponent's gauge if you're just gaining life. You can call him, discard anything, charge 1, and when you buddy call an Ultimate Garga, you're gonna actually be able to steal the 2 of their gauge. That's why I use 4 of them. I think 6 searchers is actually enough. I saw some deck profiles that only use like 4, maybe 5, and that's okay. If but after playtesting it, I feel that 6 is the right number for it to be consistent enough and to be not break enough. Next, 3 Garcats, of course, a staple in Deity Dragon Tribes. Charge 1, draw 1, everybody loves them. Next is 2 Awakened Deity Dragon Tormgardra. He's very important actually. He drops your G boost and actually gauges you and heals you and draw you a card, and then he can actually slip into the soul of Garga, and that's actually yeah, that's not a bad ability because it can beef Garga up so you can take more attacks. But the most important part of this is that it can drop G boost. Of course, you can set up for the FTK and basically anything. You can set up for G boost craft if you're going second. Next, I use 1 Yuga. Yuga here is actually in cases where your gauge is actually stolen by your opponent. If you're fighting against gut punks or something, Yuga here only costs 1 gauge, and if you have Ultimate Garga in hand, you can actually use Yuga's ability and then call him for free, and you already have 2 soul right there actually. And he kinda works in place of G-Boost Will, because he when anything on top of him attacks, you can deal 1 and heal 1. Next, for the size 1 is 1 Awakened Deity Dragon Gar Squirrel. He's pretty important for the FTK because the FTK requires you to have an item, and he actually searches item and actually can actually equip them. And fun fact about this one, because his ability equips the item directly, your opponent cannot counter to you equipping that item, so you can keep that in mind the next time you play him. Next, for the items, I only run 3 because there's enough searches for item. First off, 2 of the Gar Wyvern Sword and 1 of the Ultimate Garga Saber. Why do I run more of the Gar Wyvern Sword? Because he's actually kind of better than the Garga Saber, Ultimate Garga Saber, because you can actually toolbox from the drop zone. You can call Garcat or Stormgardra or basically anything, maybe even Deogardra, and it also has 3 criticals, and it actually a perfect match if you're doing the FTK. You actually want this rather than this, but this one is especially preserved for matches up against like Time Dragons or God Punks, I guess, because God Punks can actually just put this straight to drop zone because it doesn't have Soul Guard or anything, but this one actually does have 2 souls. And when you're fighting against Time Dragons, even if they target this, it still has Soul Guard. because if you have Ultimate Garga on the field, it cannot be nullified. So yeah, having souls is pretty important, and actually its ability is not that bad, although it's kind of not very consistent because you check top 5, you can get nothing, and nevertheless it's not a bad item to run. Next for these spells, I'll run a lot of spells. First off, 3 G boost over. G boost over here is a staple. Basically, if you have a G boost, check out 3 and want to hand, act at up to 2 to hand, rest to gauge. Keep in mind that you can actually not put anything to hand and charge 3 if you have if you don't have enough gauge. Especially, that's just something that you some information that may be useful to you if you don't have enough gauge to call Garga maybe. Next is 3 Gargantua Evolution. Some people run it at 2, but I like 3 because, well, it's kind of a dead card at the end of the game, but you want to maximize the chances of getting it, so I just run it at 3. And actually, after running that, after using this when I only have one of these G boost, I feel that it's not gonna be usable if you draw 2 of them or 1 of them. If you draw only 1 of them, one of the G boosts, you have to reveal Ultimate Garga, or unless this card won't work, because it has to reveal 3 monsters, the G boost, with different card names. That's important. That's why I think it's pretty important to run more than 1 G boost, at least one of the G boosts. So yeah, keep that in mind, I guess. Next, for the actually defensive capabilities of the deck, I only run 3 Blade Breaking Shockwave and 2 Loud Voice. I guess you already know what Loud Voice does. It basically discard cards from your hand, and your whole opponent's field gets minus 3,000 power, minus 3,000 defense, and 1 critical for each card that you discarded. And this basically stops decks like Roselia, I guess, because they attack with the whole board. This is pretty useful against decks like that, and I guess Astro Dragons and Chaos, and basically decks that multi-attacks. Oh, Legend Dragons, it actually works with Legend Dragons also. And also, if you have any pieces of the G boost stuck in your hand, you can actually send it to the drop zone via Loud Voice. So it has that ability, I guess. Yeah, it has that option. Blade Breaking Shockwave is, I guess you can say it's kind of better because it only costs life and targets 2 cards, and those cards can't stand anymore. So it basically is a perfect counters against decks like Time Dragon, because Time Dragon actually has a restander now, but with this they can't even stand anymore. So yeah, I guess this is kind of better because its cost doesn't rely on you having hand cards like Loud Voice does. But I guess well, they have their own aspects of defense. Next, I run the 2 offs actually. First, 2 Oracle standard, 1 gauge, draw 2, heal 2 if you have a Draw God. This actually works even if you don't have a Draw God. That's very important when you're trying to dig for Gargo or for the Searcher. I think Oracle is a definite staple. Next, 2 Gorkamons. Gorkamons here is again very important if you're trying to get Gargo or trying to get G boosts. If you have a Searcher in your drop zone and you have no way of calling it, you can use Gorkamon and stuff. It can also prolong your attacks, and it's basically very important, very important card to have, because you can also miss target with it and everything. A very good card. Next, 2 Dragot Shine, definite staple actually for any Dragot deck, I guess, because it not only does it salvage up to 2 DD Dragon Tribes, it can actually search an item, and items are very important for the FTK. I'm going to explain later. I think veteran players already know what I'm talking about. Next, for the quote-unquote draw spells, I run 2 Gar-E Grants and 2 Gar-E Burst. Gar-E Burst is the worst version of Gar-E Grants, basically, because it doesn't check top 4 first, and then you can choose. But why do I run 2 when 2 of Gar-E Grants and 2 of Gar-E Burst? One just 4, because both of them are actually once per turn. If you first use Gar-E Grants and then you look at you add Gar-E Burst, and you can activate it and just plus a lot. Although the bad aspect of this is that you have to activate G-Boost Wheel and G-Boost Base first. Although Garga's ability will, when you activate G-Boost EX, it counts as you activating G-Boost Wheel, Base, and Craft, and then you can use this. But I just don't like the aspect of that. Although these two are very pulsing spells, but either way they're still good. They can also prolong your combos and everything, and also plus on you. A very important card to have. Next, for the pretty much the one-offs, I run 1 Combat Deity Rises, 1 Perfected Dragon, 1 Gur-E Stream, 1 Gur-E Dasher, 1 Dragonic Exchange, 1 Dragon 4. Combat Deity Rises, his ability is you may only cast this card during your final phase. If you have a dragon on your field, pay 2 gauge and send all 3 dragon traps on your field. Then all cards on your field can attack during this final phase. This is basically for those decks that have phase enders and everything. Very important card. You can actually set this again. You can put this in the sideboard if you're fighting against decks like Dimension Dragons or Time Dragon. Because basically Time Dragon's defenses rely on them ending phases and redirecting attacks, but ending phases is a very important aspect of their gameplay. If you crush that, if you get rid of that aspect, they can lose the game if they don't have the spell nullifier. Next is 1 Perfected Dragon. I ran 2 of this once, and I felt that it doesn't actually do you a lot, because while it does kind of toolbox you, because it can search a lot of Gur-E spells, especially like Gur-E Stream or Gur-E Dasher or even Gur-E Burst or Gur-E Grants. Some of the Gur-E spells will actually only work if you activate Garga's ability first, Jibusi Access ability, like Gur-E Burst, for example. That's why I only run 1 of them. Well, it's kind of helpful, I guess, if you're trying to get more cards, I guess, or trying to search for an anti-rest or a disruptor in your opponent's turn. Next, Gur-E Stream. It's a simple ability, basically. When you cast this, everything on your field cannot be rest or returned to hand by opponent's card effects, and it kind of has a bonus ability where after when your Deity Dragon Trap stand by card effects, you get 1 life. It's a pretty good card for actually an answer to decks that can rest a lot, like Zodiac, for example. That's kind of important, I guess. Next, Gur-E Dasher. Gur-E Dasher is one of the most powerful Gur-E spells, in my opinion, because it can actually nullify abilities and destroy the monster. The important part in here is nullifying abilities, because if you actually watch the Buddyfight World Finals, Legend Dragons against Dimension Dragons, the Legend Dragon player won by actually denying their opponents of activating abilities. Like when the Dimension Dragon player tried to activate the size 2 Dimension Dragon, the Legend Dragon player just nullified it. And nullifying abilities like that is very important, because you can actually disrupt their plays and then can deny them of resources, so they can move on from their current position. Very good card. And again, it can also gain you 5 life also at combo with Dio Gardra. Next is 1 Dragonic Exchange. I guess it's a pretty important card, because this deck does have a lot of gauge, especially after you use the cards like Gur-E Burst or Gur-E Grants, and you can actually try to find the combo pieces for the FTK. A very important card, I guess, to have. I might bump it to 2 actually. Next is Dragon Force, basically Soul Hate. I only run this for the Soul Hate, because it removes all souls from a card on the field and then destroys it, and also it can actually destroy anything on the field and then draw you 1 card. Next, for the final 2 cards in the deck, 2 Giga Howling Crushers. Yes, this is why I have Ultimate Garga as the buddy. This is why the FTK is possible. This is why the FTK is pretty disgusting, actually. Well, I guess the FTK kind of works, at least before the new generic spell comes out, that actually makes the opponent unable to take any effect damage. So I guess the FTK won't be as viable if that comes out. But for the time being, for the current meta, it kind of works. It can also, I guess, win against Time Dragons, because the total damage can be 10 damage with this impact. That's actually pretty insane, because 3 gauge for 10 damage is is like the Lost World Impact. This is a pretty insane card, actually, if you think about it. Okay, I guess that's it for the deck profile. Now I'm going to move on to some sideboard ideas, because sideboarding is very important in tournament matches, and I'm going to tell you what I actually sided. First, Gar E Dasher, 1 Gar E Dasher, 1 Dragon of War, 1 Combat DD Arises, 2 Gar Highlands, 2 Loyalty, 1 Buddyfighters Without Limits, and 2 DD Strike Ultimate Gargantua Punisher. Gar E Dasher and Dragon of War actually is for those matchups when if your opponent's card can be nullified or can be disrupted by being nullified, you're on Gar E Dasher. If your opponent relies on investing everything on one monster like Dragon Blast Act or Link Dragon Orders, you run Dragon of War. If your opponent has a lot of face hitters or has at least one face hitter like Wider Stot or the Alteration or Chronos and Block and you run this. If your opponent steals your gauge a lot, you can use Gar Highland to increase the gauge because it gauges 4 and that's enough to call Ultimate Garga, and it can also mistarget attacks and heal you 4, so it's not actually a bad card to side. 2 Loyalty. Loyalty is one of the most broken cards that has ever been printed because it can actually stop your opponents from calling more than 3 monsters, and calling monsters in this meta is very important to gain resources to attack and everything, especially Garga. Garga actually calls a lot if it's not being disrupted by cards like Loyalty, so Loyalty is pretty important in today's meta. Buddyfighters Without Limits, it's very important to have this against decks like Anzu, because Anzu is a hand destruction deck, and with this on hand, your opponent won't be able to discard you anymore, so I guess it's pretty important. And it also has this ability where it can gain you 3 life or reduce the critical of your opponent's card by 2. So I guess it's not bad. 2 DD Strike Ultimate Gargantua Punisher. I guess you already know why I cited this in. It's especially I decided in special for the Time Dragon matchup because it's actually counter to 2 Time Dragons. If you read the first ability, if your life becomes 0 in stop time, you may drop this card from your hand. If you do, your life becomes 1 and deal 5 damage to your opponent. This damage cannot be reduced. It also runs as a normal impact after you activate a G boost and your monster and item attacked and your opponent's life is 5 or less and deals 5 damage. Not a bad impact to run in your main deck, but I actually favor the FTK more than this, of course. But it's not a bad card to run against Time Dragon. So I guess that wraps up the deck profile. So now I'm going to explain to you the FTK combo. This is actually what you need for the FTK. First, an Ultimate Garga on field, a Gar Sword equipped, or actually any item equipped, and then Gar/Wyvern and Gargantua Night Dragon on drop. That depends on what item that you're having. I'm going to explain it later. So this is basically what you need, and you need to have, of course, the impact in hand. Dragon Lord Initiation, Giggle and Crusher. First off, let's read the ability. You may only cast this card if you have a buddy monster or a monster with Drummond's card name on your field, you have an item equipped, and neither you nor your opponent has a monster in the center. Cast cost pay 3 gauge, deal damage to your opponent equal to the sum of the criticals of a monster and an item on your field. The damage dealt by this card cannot be reduced. This combo first works by having only Gargantua/Wyvern in your drop zone. First, you have to activate Ultimate Garga, and then it gets the G boost will. And then you attack your opponent. If assuming that they have only 10 life, they're gonna go to 7. And Gargantua/Wyvern effects activates, and then you're gonna deal 1 damage, and you're gonna heal 1. So their life is gonna be at 6, right? So when their life is at 6, this impact deals the exact damage needed to actually win, because it's 3 criticals plus 3 criticals, because it deals damage equal to the critical of a monster and an item on your field. But actually this impact works either way if you have these two, because if you attack with if you only have Gargantua Night Dragon in your drop zone, if you attack with this, it's gonna be 5 critical. Your opponent's life is gonna be 5, and the total critical will be 10. So there you go. That's just 10 damage right there. If you only have Gargantua / Wyvern in your drop zone, and your item is not the Gar Wyvern, instead your item is the Gargantua, the ultimate Garga Saber, the FTK won't work at this like this, because the damage will only be, the total damage will be 9 actually, because this only deals 3, and because your opponent 1, their level will be 6, and the total damage dealt by the impact will only be 5. So I guess it won't be enough to FTK. So if you only have Ultimate Garga Saber equipped, you need to have Gargantua, at least you need to have Gargantua Night Dragon in your drop zone. Actually, Gargantua Night Dragon works either way if you have the Ultimate Saber or the Gar Wyvern Sword. So I guess the important part here is to have at least Gargantua Night Dragon in your drop zone, and the FTK will work either way. The most important thing is just you have an Ultimate Garga and an item on your field. That's why the Ultimate Garga is my buddy. If he isn't, I won't be able to cast the Giga Howling Crusher. So that's the FTK combo. I hope you liked this video, and I hope you don't abuse this FTK. And I guess like and subscribe for more videos, and see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.